By the governor of the state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, in studio this morning. Mr. Governor, thank you for being with us. I'm sorry that I'm not in studio with you. I know it's less personal when we have to do the video link up, but always good to see you.
Good to see you this morning, Richard. Hope everything is going well with you and your family.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. You called the special session for today, and appears to be a very narrow mandate for the legislature. This is one of those opportunities where the governor's got a significant amount of power. You kind of set the agenda for a special session. You could have included other things. Why did you just make this about the budget and not add anything else?
Well, I've been very reluctant to call special sessions over my 6 years as governor, and it's really rooted in a general mindset that I developed while serving as lieutenant governor, and that is, Mississippi has been a state since 1817. So for now 207 years we've been a state, and so if any one particular bill has not become law or did not become law during the general session, I just have a view that if Mississippi's made it for 207 years without a particular bill becoming law, we probably can make it for 7 more months. And so that's point number one. Point number two is what we know is that there was not significant disagreement between the two chambers regarding the actual budget itself. I mean, we have a budget that has been agreed upon that's $7.135 billion, which is basically year-over-year level funding. But there wasn't major disagreements with respect to the two chambers and that particular number and how that fit out. Where there was major disagreement was on a lot of other issues out here on the periphery. And so my view is the best way in which to get the legislature in, get them to get their job done, and to get them out and back home to their communities and to their families is to limit the call. And so that's what we've decided to do. I'm certainly not limited by that. I could always add things to the call should we choose to do so. We can always have another special session if an item arises that reaches that level where I believe it is necessary. But I think the best thing in talking with the legislative leadership is let's get the legislature in and out, get it done quickly, and we can move on to other things.
It's no secret that between the House and the Senate that there has been tension during this most recent session. In the days leading up to this, and I guess ultimately the reason that they didn't get it done before the break is this disagreement on special project funding. There's money in the bank, and we know that the Senate had some projects that they wanted to fund, but others that they didn't. And the Speaker of the House told us last week, we're either funding everything or we're not going to fund anything. Where was the disconnect there? From your perspective, why could they not come to an agreement on that?
Well, I can't speak for either chamber or either leader. They're certainly capable of speaking for themselves. But let's just take a step back. And sometimes I think we need to realize the environment in which we are in. The notion that there is tension between the House and the Senate in the Mississippi legislature in the year 2025 should surprise no one. There is tension between the House and the Senate in every legislature in America right now. There is tension in the United States Congress between the House and the Senate on President Trump's one big beautiful bill. They're fighting over that as we speak. You know, I'm reminded of a story that was told by a friend of mine who went to work in Washington, D.C. some 30-something years ago, and he was a hardcore conservative Republican staffer, and he was sitting in orientation, and he got in orientation, and one of the people that were speaking to them asked the entire group of Republican staffers, who is the enemy? And he, being this young conservative, was in his mind thinking, well, of course, it's the Democrats is the enemy, right? We're Republicans. We believe in the principles that we believe in. And the guy speaking said, no, you've got it all wrong. The Democrats for you are the opposition. The enemy as a House as a House staffer is the Senate, and so this is something that goes back hundreds of years in our country. So this notion that this disagreement is new or surprising or shocking and is just really not true. And so it's just reality.
Is that a concern for you, though, within the Republican Party? Because we see it here in Mississippi, but we also see it in Washington, D.C., a supermajority. Locally, a majority in D.C., plus the White House, and yet the fighting seems to be amongst Republicans themselves, whereas traditionally we've watched Democrats, even if they disagree among themselves, ultimately they all get in line and vote the same way.
Well, it's not really a concern to me, Richard, and the reason it's not a concern to me is because I understand fully sort of the way in which the two separate parties view things. It has long been a viewpoint of the National Democrat Party that they believe in centralized decision-making. They believe in decisions made in Washington, D.C. are better for the government and better for the country than decisions made by individuals. Conversely, we as the Republicans believe in the individual. We believe in the power of the individual. We do not believe in the power of government. We believe that government that understands that allowing individuals to make the best decisions for themselves and their families is really what will drive long-term success for the country. And so the fact that we have individuals that have differing viewpoints does not bother me and has never bothered me. Now, I wish that when you start talking about individual issues and specific issues that we had more lockstep in the Republican Party to adopt more conservative views and conservative principles, but just having disagreements is part of the process. And I know it's frustrating for some of our listeners this morning, and it's frustrating for a lot of my constituents, many of whom I know very, very well, that get very frustrated with the process. But here's reality. Making a bill become law, whether it's in the Mississippi legislature or the United States Congress, is hard. And guess what, Richard? It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to have to drive consensus. And so the disagreements and what's happened in the past are not something that worries me or really I spend a lot of time thinking about. What I'm trying to do is make sure that we find consensus in this particular session that hopefully will last a day or two and no more, and limit the amount of spending that is being done by the taxpayers.
One of the principles of conservatism and platforms of the Republican Party is less tax, and you certainly have been a proponent of that and keeping more money in people's pockets. How concerning is it to you that the state is sitting on about $2 billion that is not being spent? And maybe that is a fiscally conservative approach with the unknown that we've got from the federal government coming forward. But that's taxpayer money that the state is sitting on, and instead of having that go into projects or back into people's pockets, it's sitting in a bank account.
Well, I mean, I think that's something that we will need to work on over the next few months, and when the legislature comes in the 2026 legislative session. I will tell you, given two alternatives, and that is having a lot of money sitting in the bank that is not being wasted versus having money that is being spent on things that perhaps government ought not be doing. That's a pretty easy choice for me, and I think it's a pretty easy choice for most Republicans in the legislature, and I think probably most members of the legislature on both sides of the aisle. There are certainly worthy projects that can and should be funded and that I would support, and I'm hopeful that we can find ways in which to do that. I think your point, which is extremely important, and that is all of the excess revenue that has been collected over the last 5 years, literally billions of dollars. Let's go back and just remember that it was in 2016 when Chairman Trey Lamar was in the House and Speaker White was also in the House, and I was over on the other side of the building when we passed the initial tax cut, the Taxpayer Pay Raise Act, we called it, which was about a $550 million tax cut. There were screams and cries that revenue that revenue was going to be lost, whatever that means, and that the state was
everything that's old is new again,
and that the state was not going to be able to fund its obligations. Well, we argued, all of us, that was in fact not the case. That what really was going to happen is by leaving more money in people's pockets, it was going to spur economic growth. And it turns out there was one side that was right and one side that was not.
That economic growth is continuing in spades under the leadership of Governor Tate Reeves. We'll talk about some of that on the other side of this break. Economic development in Mississippi. I'm pleased that the governor didn't have to go to a ribbon cutting this morning and he was able to sit down with us. Those seem to be happening about 3 a day. Brought up PERS funding in his press conference yesterday, or his call yesterday. We'll get to that as well. More with the governor of the state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, joining us mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back with you right after this. Visiting with the governor of the state of Mississippi, the great state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, this morning. He's in studio. Thanks so much, Governor, for coming by. Always a pleasure to visit with you. You probably have a better grasp on the intricacies of the state retirement system, PERS, than most. You served in that role as state treasurer. I guess had a seat on the PERS board in that role for 8 years. You know the liability that exists there. Ultimately, the legislature has to make a decision on how to fund that and how to fix that problem. But as you look at this $26.5 billion liability, I know you mentioned PERS funding on your call yesterday. What's the solution there? Because all of our elected officials have been quick to say, hey, we owe this money, we're going to pay this money, we're on the hook for it. But it's also got to be figured out going forward. What does that look like for you?
Well, yes. So that's a topic that we could spend the next, not only the next 30 minutes, but the next 30 days talking about. But let's talk about the unfunded liability. Let's first of all remind everyone that we have, with the market run up, probably between $35 and $40 billion in assets. And so let's not just look at the liability side. Let's consider that we do have 35 to 40 billion in assets. And so there is no pending crisis in terms of being able to pay in the short run. So that being the case, the way in which to solve this is through long-term solutions. I do think that Lieutenant Governor Hoseman's efforts this year to create a fifth tier would be what I would call, when I was first running for office in 2003, Haley, we had a terrible budget crisis then, and Haley Barbour was running for governor, and he said the first thing you need to do if you're in a hole and you want to get out of it is to stop digging. And I think that the fifth tier certainly is one way in which to stop digging and quit digging the hole. And so I supported that effort by the lieutenant governor that ultimately passed in the House and the Senate and signed that bill into law. And so I think that's going to help. I think that there is no one solution for the rest of the unfunded liability. I think that of the roughly $25 billion in unfunded liability, keep in mind about a third of that, somewhere between $8 to $9 billion, was created simply by decisions made by the board when they lowered the expected rate of return from 8% to 7%. That created $7 or $8 billion in that unfunded liability. I've never been an advocate of lowering the expected rate of return, but if you are going to lower the expected rate of return, then you should also change your asset allocation commensurate to what your risk tolerance is. And they didn't do that. They're investing in the exact same assets that they were investing in over the last 30 years that have returned well in excess of 8% on average. And so that's part of the challenges there. And then the final piece of it is you've got to put more money into the system, and the legislature has started that process. They're going to increase the employer contribution rate by 2.5% for employees in state government, but that also is going to put constraints, and is concerning to some of our local officials. But local employees will also see an increase of 2.5% over a 5-year period. This is year 2. The budget that will be funded today, and I know this stuff gets kind of boring, but the budget that will be funded today will see a funding mechanism to increase the employer contribution by 0.5%. And so again, it's going to take time, but I think the pathway has been created to resolve this issue, and we're headed in that direction.
Switch gears a second. To use your Haley Barbour analogy, I think there's a second leg to that stool. You can either stop digging or you can make more money, right? And on the economic development piece, like if you've got new expense, you either have got to cut somewhere or make more money to be able to pay for it. The economic development piece has been thriving. I guess football analogy here, you've got a good team around you, right, with Bill Cork and the job that they do, and Courtney Taylor and the job that she's doing, and so many others that are involved. But I kind of look at you as the head coach, like the closer. You got to go in and make the recruiting pitch. When you are recruiting companies to Mississippi to come in to invest in our economy, what's your pitch? How do you close?
Well, honestly, I do have a great team around me, and I just want to reiterate that again. You know, you can have the best quarterback in the NFL, but if you don't have anybody that can block for him, if you don't have a receiver that can catch, having the best quarterback in the league doesn't really matter. And so we have a great team, really across the board, that are doing incredible work, and I couldn't be more proud, not only of the success that we're having, but just I couldn't be more proud of how hard our team is working. It is every single day. I told over a 3-week period, I saw Bill Cork was in Asia 1 week, he was in Europe 1 week, and then he was in a foreign country of California the next week. And so literally working around the clock and around the globe to bring more and better paying jobs to our people. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Now, it doesn't just happen with our team and the team that we've assembled from 2020 to 2025. All of this really strong work, the foundation began in the legislative sessions that occurred in 2012 and 2013, and the tax cut bill that I mentioned earlier in 2016, strongly supported by House leadership at the time and Senate leadership, and then Governor Bryant, where you remember in that 2016 plan, we eliminated the franchise tax. Well, what that does is it allows more capital in small businesses in Mississippi that they then can reinvest in their businesses. We eliminated the inventory tax. They made it cheaper to do business in Mississippi. And so all of these things are coming together to create the environment that we find ourselves in now, where I don't have to be that good at closing, Richard, because our people sell themselves. Yeah. Our state sells itself. And, you know, one of my favorite sayings, I tell my close friends this all the time, and this is a challenge. Number one, our biggest challenge in Mississippi is convincing somebody to come here once, whether it's tourism or economic development. If we can convince them to come to Mississippi one time, they almost always like what they see. And the second thing I remind everyone of is my view is Mississippi is the best kept secret in the world. The only challenge that I have to overcome is that I have a whole lot of constituents who want to keep it that way. And I understand it, because we definitely, you know, I hear my friends in Nevada say that we don't want to we don't want Nevada to become California, and we don't want the Californians moving in to make Nevada more like California. Well, the truth is, our people want Mississippi to stay Mississippi, and I just believe that there's a way in which to do smart economic growth that grows our economy, that creates opportunities for our people, while still keeping Mississippi's values at its core, and I think we've found the secret sauce to make that happen, and that secret sauce is our people.
I'm glad you went backwards on the kind of the economic development timeline, because it's almost like it started with Haley Barbour in terms of cleaning up the budget mess that you were talking about. Like you had to get things in order at home, and then Phil Bryant's able to build on that with the beginning pieces of economic development. Yokohama was huge, and then that has just continued to grow almost exponentially in your time in office. Is all of this laying the groundwork for whoever follows you to be able to do even more and better because of what has been done before them?
Look, I sat down with our team not too long ago, and that's exactly the conversation that we had. You know, a lot of folks around politics really want to speculate on who's running for what in 2027 and who's going to be the next governor and who's going to be the next lieutenant governor. And
wait, people are talking about that?
Y'all are talking about it. I'm not spending a lot of time talking about it, but that's natural. You know, politics is a contact sport in Mississippi, and we love college baseball this time of year, and we love politics year round, and that's great. But what I'm talking to my team about is the momentum we have today in Mississippi in terms of a growing economy, where in 2024 we had the second fastest growing economy in all of the United States. Richard, that's a number that you and I probably never thought possible. That's people that my age, who I ain't as young as I used to be, in my 50s now, never thought possible that we would see, okay, our economy is growing faster than 48 other states. But our goal now, and our goal for the next 2.5 years, is to build on that momentum such that the snowball coming down that mountain is so big that it really doesn't matter who gets elected next, as long as they don't implement policies that reverse what have gotten us this momentum.
You got time to hang till the end of the hour, or do you have a meeting you need to run to?
I'm hanging till the end of the hour.
Beautiful. We will continue the conversation. You brought up baseball. I want you to go just a step deeper on that when we come back. Ole Miss hosting, Southern Miss hosting, Mississippi State headed to Tallahassee. And then we'll also talk about regional growth. Mississippi is not alone in terms of the Southeast and states that are growing. Is that helpful? Is that a rising tide raises all boats situation? We'll continue that conversation with Governor Tate Reeves here in Mississippi. Today, the special session will begin. It's expected that will be a short session. We're back with you right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Governor, we got a question on the C Spire text line. How many states operate with a budget surplus like Mississippi has been able to do in recent years?
I don't know the exact number. I did read recently in the Wall Street Journal, I believe, that California has about a $20 billion deficit this year, annual deficit. And so I think if you look at that there are 27 Republican governors, and I'm not suggesting that all 27 of them have budget surpluses, but I'm betting that most of them have budget surpluses. And my guess is a lot of the blue states, particularly the bigger ones, are not operating with surpluses.
Mississippi is a unique state. It doesn't have the metro areas that some of the surrounding states have. Some of those are non-state income tax states like Tennessee and Texas and Florida, but we're different than those states. All of the surrounding states, and I would add Alabama and Arkansas to this, have been really focused on economic development and have had their share of success in the same way that you in the state of Mississippi have had success in landing companies and getting that development. Is the regional success, the southeastern regional success, helpful to what you're trying to do in terms of attracting new business to Mississippi?
No question. Look, the fact is that a lot of the movement, both in terms of new businesses and population, because, look, population is going to follow where there are good-paying jobs. And I think we have seen not a complete turnaround, but certainly a reversal of the population shifts that we saw in the early 2000s and really into about 5 or 6 years ago, where we're actually seeing population growth in our state now. But that began in Texas. It began in and around the Nashville, Tennessee area. One of my kids is going to go to school this fall in Chattanooga. That's another area that is booming and growing in the state of Tennessee. But it started there, and it is now moving to other states in the South because of exactly what we believe to be true, and that is low taxes, great quality of living. And so I think that it's not surprising to me that when we compete, we are often competing with states like South Carolina and Tennessee and others for new economic development projects.
You said a little while ago, we love to talk baseball this time of year and politics year-round. A lot of baseball conversation. Southern Miss hosting a regional in Hattiesburg, big economic boom there. Ole Miss hosting in Oxford, Mississippi State back in the postseason. What a time to be a baseball fan in the state of Mississippi.
What a time to be a sports fan, Richard. I mean, look, let's not forget, and I get in trouble if I didn't say this, but let's not forget the Colin Lady Wolves winning the softball junior college national championship over the weekend. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people back in Bogachita, Mississippi, where my parents are from, that are really proud of head coach Malia Brown Howard for the absolute juggernaut program that she has built. And oh, by the way, they happen to beat Jones College in the championship series. So a lot of quality athletes here in the state of Mississippi. You've been asking a lot of questions, Richard. I want to ask you a question. So who do you start on Friday if your state, Ole Miss and Southern? Do you go with your number one, or do you hold your number one for the winner's bracket game on Saturday, hoping you get there?
If I'm Southern Miss, I'm holding J.B. Middleton for game 2. I don't know that Mississippi State's got that luxury with Pico. Northeastern, I think, is riding the longest winning streak in the country right now. I think it's 27 games, and their pitching staff has been so good. So I feel like you got to go with your ace. And I don't know what Mike Bianco is going to do in game 1. I think all 3 starters have been pretty good. Like my guess is that he goes Hunter Elliott game 1, because the thing in that regional format, it's everybody wants to win game 1, but really you have to win game 1 and game 2 to be in that driver's seat. So
coming out of the loser's bracket is very difficult, but I think your point, which is very well taken, is Southern and Ole Miss are in a very different spot than Mississippi State. It's different being the 1 seed at home and being the 3 seed on the road.
The other piece, though, about Pico Khan, Florida State's probably going to hold their guy, who's one of the best pitchers in the country, for game 2. So you would love to be able to roll him out there. So I don't know. I know it's fun. I'm a little disappointed that I'm not in either Oxford or Hattiesburg. I got to go to Conway, South Carolina for the Coastal Regional this weekend, but excited to be working. Just wish it was in Oxford or Hattiesburg. It's going to be great scenes in both places. There
will be huge crowds in Oxford and huge crowd in Hattiesburg, and that's great for the economies of those 2 areas. And look, I'm proud of what's happening here in Mississippi, and it's certainly true of our sports teams as well.
Yeah. Tell you what, I was locked in on the last couple of days out in California. They had the NCAA golf championships. Ole Miss advanced to the semifinals yesterday. That was as compelling a television as I've watched. Our own Jim Gallagher Jr. was on the broadcast on Golf Channel.
I saw that last night. I was watching the replay.
So good. Governor, I appreciate your time. I know we covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate you coming in. Look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks, Richard. Good to talk to you.
Governor of the great state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, joining us on Mornings with Richard Cross. 8 o'clock hour coming up. Leah Long will lead things off from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. And a whole lot more to get into with you in the final hour of the show. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.